Welcome to the Centuries of Sound radio podcast, where I supplement the usual ancient recordings with some extra context. This show is about the music and events of the year 1904. It features guest presenter Liam Higgins, and it was originally broadcast on Cambridge 105 Radio in July 2019. So, I hope this radio podcast is an enjoyable listen. I will keep putting out excerpts of the full mixes every week. If you want to hear the mixes in full, then please come to the main website at centuriesofsound.com. This is not a regular podcast, and you won't find everything on this feed. You do need to come to the website, or if you enjoy my work, you could consider becoming a supporter at patreon.com/centuriesofsound. This is a subscription service where you can pay $1 per month for some extra bonus material, like this radio podcast a year earlier, and some bonus mixes, or for $5 per month you can get full downloads of the main mixes straight to your podcast app of choice, or for $20 per month I will actually make a mix for you personally. It's my supporters on Patreon who keep me going, both in terms of encouragement and financial support, so thanks to all of you. And that address again, it's patreon.com/centuriesofsound.
My lords and gentlemen,
Centuries of Sound.
Hello and welcome to Centuries of Sound, the show where we use archive audio to travel back to a year of recorded sound. I'm James, I run centuriesofsound.com, where I make themed mixes along the same lines. And today I have with me...
Liam Higgins.
So, tell us something about yourself, Liam.
I am a person from Cambridge, from birth, in fact.
Wow, okay. I think I probably did know that somewhere stored back in the back of my mind.
Eternity representing.
And what kind of music do you usually listen to?
Lots of different types, often as long as it's sad.
Sad music?
Yes.
I think I might have some quite sad music for you today, in different senses of the word sad. But yeah, how about old music? Is there any old music you listen to at all?
So I quite like kind of older folk stuff. So,
okay.
Singing occasionally, but like I enjoy it when it's on more than anything, I guess.
I have some folk music from the 1920s. Mm-hmm. However, today we're going back to 1904.
Right.
So what kind of music do you imagine there might be in 1904?
I want to say kind of music hall stuff, a lot of that kind of thing. Probably fairly jingoistic.
Some would be the case. Some would be like that, yes, in England.
Right.
However, we don't have any English recordings from this year.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I can tell you the reasons, basically. Archiving in the UK is not done as well as it is in America.
That's a shame.
It's not as accessible. So I can download hundreds of MP3s from America and from Russia, but from the UK, they're all kind of paywalled, or I have to go to the British Library to access them.
Okay.
So I do not have
with
those.
American stuff, like I'd have thought we're talking like Straw Hat and Cane kind of music.
Ragtime. In other words,
I don't know. Ragtime, that's the genre.
Yeah,
just
we'll
a
have
lot
some
of like
ragtime.
shifting of hands between kneecaps.
Like barbershop
Yes,
quartets.
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, we have something along those lines as well. We don't have jazz, of course. Jazz is not going to come along until 1917.
Okay, but when you're saying that like barbershop is coming on, you're saying we're doing barbershop quartet.
We will have something along the lines of barbershop in this show.
I don't want to
get.
I'll follow you.
No, I'm not doing that. I can't sing physically. I think. All right, let's have an example of a song from the year 1904. Then this is a Czech American band leader and a cornet player called Bohemir Kryl, and he's playing something called Sweet 16 Waltz.
16 Waltz, played by Bohemir Kryl. It is on record.
Okay, so that was Bohemia Krill.
Okay.
Okay, what did you make of that then?
Well, I guess kind of what I would expect. Like,
Really?
bit
Okay.
of trumpet, right? Like trumpet on its own. But we're not kind of getting quite so fast and jazzy. It's still quite controlled.
It is.
A little
It is.
staid.
I think so. To give the kind of background on this, we're on the kind of beginnings of ragtime here, and what it's meant is we've had these marching bands. If you think like Sousa marching band music, and getting towards
What is Sousa?
Yeah, John Philip Sousa. Getting into the 20th century, this kind of ragtime influence is coming in, which means that the basic structure is staying the same, basically. But you've got soloists who are kind of like peacocking on top of it, doing these kind of like displays, showing off. At the same time, it's kind of regimented, but it's got this kind of like showing off on top of it. That's the kind of element they've brought into it.
Well, okay. I mean, obviously the trumpet's the top, like the kind of icing on this cake. But what are the kind of underlying instruments? I wasn't really able to identify that.
It's a brass band, really. They might have some percussion instruments. There's very little you can get into a little room where they're recording this, so there's going to be like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not what they're used to playing. They're used to playing with a full group of people, like 20 or more people. So
yeah, because you don't have that kind of big feel of like, I don't know, when I think of jazz records from the 30s, or from that which have been recorded maybe off a stage, or certainly with a lot of people. Yeah.
It's a very small room, and the recording technology is still very limited. So it's something that you can't really get that studio, that live feeling, not until they get electronic recordings, really.
Right. Okay.
So it's a very limited. They're recording into a horn that's probably halfway through a curtain, with a cylinder device on the other side of it.
A cylinder of what?
A cylinder made out of metallic soap.
Right. Metallic soap.
Metallic soap.
What
in
kind
this
of
case.
metal are we talking?
I'm not sure exactly. A metallic soap of some sort is what it's made of. And it's engraving it directly. The sound waves are engraving it directly. There's no electricity involved here.
Sure.
So the sound waves are being transferred directly. And I forget this is a controversial thing, but there are people out there who think that that's better than electronic recordings.
It's supposed to, because with electronic stuff, unless you have like a very low compression rate file, you will not have, you you lose a little bit. You gain a lot in portability. You can have, way more songs on your iPod or whatever. But
Edison hated electronic recording and he refused to use it. He thought it was not real recording. You weren't really getting the sound. You were just getting an electronic copy of the sound.
He would
that was his point of
view,
view.
I suppose.
Yeah, but the thing with cylinders, the thing with this acoustic recording is it had a narrow band. The high frequencies and low frequencies are lost completely.
Well, I think when we're talking particularly about this kind of conversation, we're talking about like later, when we're talking about LPs from the 60s or something like that, where you're like,
I think even from the 20s,
even from then,
even from the 20s, you can hear such a C change from like 26, 27. Sure. It's amazing when it comes in, but that's not for another 18 years, unfortunately. So 22 years now I think about it. Yeah, that's the right number. Okay, let's listen to another of the big stars of this time. It's a guy called Wes L. Osman. I love that name, Wes. It's Sylvester. He plays the banjo, and I think the banjo, as it survived into the jazz age, was kind of a percussion instrument, strumming kind of banjo sound. Yeah. But he plays the banjo as like a solo instrument, like a guitar. Cool. And he has different tunings and ways of working. This is the way the banjo was played at this time, and he's another soloist basically, but with a kind of showing off on the banjo. I'm
willing to have my eyes opened on this one because I admit I am somewhat prejudiced against the banjo.
Yeah, I mean, as it's used these days, I can understand that, I suppose. But as he uses it, it's a different instrument, I'd say. And unfortunately, this song has one of the racist song titles, which half the songs at this time have. It's called The Darkies Awakening.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
But there's no lyrics to worry about.
Good.
But I should say that that has a racist name at least. So Here he is, Wes L. Osman. All right, so that's Vessel Osman. I'm not going to repeat the name of the song again. So has your mind been changed on the subject of the banjo then? Slightly?
Not greatly.
Not greatly. It's not one of his best ones. He doesn't really go off on playing weird bits of his banjo there and doing strange things. It's just kind of a standard tune but with an orchestral backing. But it is different from the usual kind of thing you hear, yeah?
Yeah. I
would say so. So earlier you were saying about music hall. I think this is a music hall song. He's got a ridiculous comedy voice he does, which makes me forget whether he's American or British, because it's such a ridiculous comedy voice. And I don't know. You may find this appalling. I'm willing to bet there is a chance that you might find this appalling. But it's a Mr. W.W. Whitlock. They do like their initials at this time. W.W. Whitlock. And it's called Come Under My New Gamp. What is a gamp? I really don't know what a gamp is. We're going to have a listen to this and see if we can work out what a gamp is. I hope it's nothing rude. That's all I can say.
I mean, that's in the nature of pop music, that it's if you can say something without saying it.
Well, we'll make up our minds now, I suppose.
Under my new gamp.
Well, let's find out.
The thing is, under my new gamp. Like,
I think it is a bit crude. I've got a feeling it's a bit crude.
I can't really think of what it would be underneath it. Like,
it might be an umbrella. I've got a feeling it's an umbrella from the song. Well, let's find out.
Glamorous umbrella, I don't know.
No.
Not long ago, I never shall forget. I was strolling out in the west. I saw a lady in front of me with no umbrella, so I said in glee, "Oh, come under my new gamp. If you don't, you'll soon get damp." And she said, "Oh, sir, you're so kind, I don't mind." She was lovely. When we strolled for nearly half a mile, she turned round and said with a smile, "Now, kind sir, I think the weather's dry." But I murmured with another sigh, "Oh, keep under my new gamp. If you don't, you'll soon get damp." And she said, "Oh, sir, you're so kind, I don't mind." She was nice. Once again, I thought I'd have a try. So the very next time that she passed by, I said, "Lady, marry me, do. My umbrella's big enough for two. And come under my new gamp. If you don't, you'll soon get damp." And she said, "Oh, sir, you're so kind, I don't mind." She was nice to me, you know, oh, yes. I shall never forget her.
Well, that's an experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he does sound like he has been overdoing it on the laughing gas.
There's something quite wrong there in some way. I don't know.
He sounds like an ancestor of the Joker.
I don't think he's deliberately trying to sound creepy.
I mean, then that makes it less of an artistic achievement?
Possibly. Yeah. Well, anyway, Mr. W.W. Whitlock, whoever he was.
What is a gamp? Please explain.
What is a gamp? I'm looking it up right now.
I am
still
none the wiser, except it just sounds obviously quite dirty. Come under my new gamp.
Good automated manufacturing process.
It is not this.
It's not that.
This is not.
Gamp meaning and definition. Let's have a look.
My umbrella.
British informal, an umbrella. There we go.
Right. But
after Mrs. Sarah Gamp, a nurse in Dickens' Martin Chuzzlewit, who carried a faded cotton umbrella. There we go.
Right. But, I mean, basically what he's saying, come into my personal space.
Right.
Because I want to laugh at you.
I don't know what's so funny. What is he laughing about?
He's like, I am going to do naughty, naughty things to this woman. This is what I'm getting from that.
Music hall was quite rude, quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
As we have found out
It's
previously.
important to remember that those staid-looking people in the pictures were not actually at all, and probably drank quite a lot of gin.
Well, we've just finished the naughty 90s. We're in the Edwardian summer of further naughtiness. So yeah, sounds reasonable. Okay, we have a selection of French recordings now.
Okay.
For some reason, in 1904, there's loads of recordings from France. Do you speak any French?
No.
Non. Well, apart from non.
Yeah.
Yeah, non.
And pamplemousse.
Pamplemousse, chou-fleur. These are the words you need to know when you're in France. This is a selection of different things, so we'll be off the microphones for 10 minutes or so. Have a listen, and any French listeners, I'd really like to get some feedback on what this stuff is, because it's very interesting stuff. Some of it's very good, but I have no idea what they're talking about.
Oh là là de rire, quelle fameuse bosse. D'abord tout le monde est parti à la demeure de la fiancée. Si vous saviez ce que l'on a ri quand la musique fit son entrée. Le piston faisait comme ça. Le trombone poussait toujours. La clarinette était là. Et la grosse caisse à son tour accompagnait le tambour. À la mairie, nous avions fait chacun notre petit paraphe. Alors pour avoir notre portrait, nous entrâmes chez le photographe. La mariée se mit au milieu, près de son époux qui l'enlace. Et les musiciens tout joyeux jouaient dans une pose remplie de grâce. Le piston faisait comme ça. Le trombone poussait toujours. La clarinette était là. Et la grosse caisse à son tour accompagnait le tambour.
Mesdames et messieurs, voici les quelques cris d'animaux que j'ai pu retenir en faisant une visite au jardin des plantes. Voici d'abord le chien. Fais le beau, tu auras du sucre. Là, une poule qui pond des œufs pour faire des omelettes au lard. Le canard. On dirait un caissier en train de manger la grenouille. Le coucou. En ce qu'il y en a des coucous, on en trouve partout. La tourterelle. Un ancien ministre qui pleure son portefeuille. Oh, 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 oh. Voyons, si je fais des dettes, c'est pas pour les payer, ou alors c'est pas la peine d'en faire. Votre serviteur.
Bonsoir, mademoiselle, disait le garçon à la demoiselle, sans plus de façon, puis devant chez elle, un serment de main. Bonsoir, mademoiselle, jusqu'à demain. C'était une belle travaillant chez un grand couturier. C'était un garçon de 20 ans, un tout jeune employé. Et comme leurs parents par hasard étaient presque voisins, chaque soir tous les deux s'attendaient pour faire le chemin. Bonsoir, mademoiselle, disait le garçon à la demoiselle, sans plus de façon. Puis devant chez elle, un serment de main. Bonsoir, mademoiselle, jusqu'à demain. Un jour, il lui dit, il y a longtemps qu'on se connaît tous les deux. Je voudrais vous demander un baiser, ça me rendrait bien heureux. Mais très crânement, le jeune fille lui répondit comme ça. Mais baiser, mon cher, disait, j'ai un homme qui m'épousera. Bonsoir, mademoiselle, lui dit le garçon. Vous êtes curieuse, c'est une son, sans plus en dire, la laissant là, sans un sourire, il s'en alla.
Mesdames et messieurs, je vais avoir l'honneur de vous raconter un petit monologue en anglais par moi, Fraxon, sur le record Edison. Ça s'appelle l'anglais triste. C'est très rigolo. L'année passée, je me suis marié à Manchester avec une femme très jolie, vous savez. Et au bout d'un an de mariage, mon femme, elle est devenue très grosse. C'était le mode d'Angleterre, des très très sérieux en affaires. L'English a le réputation d'être le plus grand de nation. Ce qui fait notre succès dans le monde, ce n'est pas notre barbe blonde, ce n'est pas nos petits d'enfants, ce n'est pas nos petits enfants. Non, c'est le flegme, le bon flegme britannique. Toujours flegmatique dans le Old England, on faisait tout pratiquement et flegmatiquement. Yes! C'était le mode en Angleterre que les Miss soient froides comme le pierre. Elles avaient de très bons amis, mais ne faisaient pas comme à Paris. Elles se contentaient du flirtage avec beaucoup de pécotage. Si elles ne marchaient pas, les chéris, c'est pas qu'elles n'avaient pas envie, oh no. C'est le bon flegme britannique. Toujours flegmatique dans le Old England, on faisait son petit flottement, très flegmatiquement. Good night. Alors j'ai été chercher le médecin pour savoir ce qu'il avait. Le docteur est venu, il a expliqué à moi que le petit était dead, était mort parce qu'il avait bu trop de lait et la nourrice lui avait fait danser le jus comme ça trop longtemps. Eh bien, le docteur, il a fait l'autopsie et il a expliqué à moi que le petit salé, il avait dans son estomac 2 livres de beurre à force de remuer tout le temps.
Au premier des messieurs, telle est la phrase traditionnelle que moi, coiffeur méticuleux, je dis chaque jour à ma clientèle. C'est votre tour, monsieur du cordon. C'est savoir ça, vous qui êtes concierge. Il paraît que dans votre maison, il y a une fille qui est encore vierge. Et oui, monsieur, oui, parfaitement. Cette demoiselle qui a 60 ans d'âge n'a jamais eu un seul amant et possède encore son pur. Au premier de ces messieurs. C'est à vous, monsieur le barbeau. Je vais vous rafraîchir les quiches. Alors, ça va un peu le boulot. Votre môme fait son beurre sur le boule miche. Ma môme, je t'en fous, elle fait plus le rang. Fini à sœur pour nos gonzesses. Les Allemands ramassent tout le pognon en se faisant taper dans les hauts premiers de ces messieurs. Maintenant que les clients sont caltés, je vais me faire une beauté fatale, à seule fin de pouvoir épater 1 ou 2 grandes horizontales. Oui, ce soir, je me sens folichon, et si je rencontre une cocodette, ma foi tant pis pour mes 30 ronds, sans hésiter, je lui ferai au premier de ces messieurs.
Ah, le voilà, je vais le prendre, madame. C'est pas bien. Un peu de courage, c'est pas mais voilà, tiens, rincez la bouche, madame. Très bien, c'est bien fini maintenant, n'est-ce pas, madame?
Mais non, monsieur, j'ai encore mal.
Encore mal, montrez-moi un peu. Ah, j'apprécie, voilà que j'ai tiré une dent contraire.
Mon Dieu! Mon Dieu, dent contraire! Oh là 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 là!
Oh, il ne faut pas pleurer pour cela, madame. Je vais vous enlever celle-ci aussi. Vous ne payerez pas d'un tout davantage.
magnifiques, les soifs, les turcos, leur allure intrépide, leur façon de marcher, d'un palais rapide, ne cesse de chanter. Les étirent, grimpent vers la case-basse, aïouappent faire plaisir. Mais si leur joie s'arrête dans les petits enclos, en jouant de la baïonnette, une chanson harpicot. Ces braves galurons surmontent leur misère aux accents du clairon. Entre eux se dispute la gloire d'arriver. Aussi au jour de lutte, on pourra leur chanter.
All right, that's a selection of French recordings, and some of the different things you would have heard there. We had
this is a French man showing his love for a duck.
Well, that was Grisard. First, we had Charles. That was Grisard. Then we had Paul Fayol, Harry Fragson, and Jean Pelleux, and Leone Willikins. That's the different people. A Willikins. Two different people. Leone A. Willikins.
A Willikins.
Yeah,
and that it does sound like Willikins from England has gone over and got a little bit above his station.
Could be. There's this Harry Fragson. He does some songs in English with making jokes in English and skipping back into French, franglais sort of thing. So that could be a connection
right
there.
Up the kind of sort of middle class, self-important alley.
Yeah, it's one of those alleys.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so that's France. It's 1904 France. What kind of things are going on there?
What I wanted to talk about on that one was very, very significant. We have just started on, it's a step along the road towards the Great War.
Yeah.
The greatest of all wars.
That's what they thought. Yeah.
Never name anything quite like that, because you're always just asking for someone to prove you a bit premature.
Great Britain.
So yes, apparently France and Great Britain signed the Entente Cordiale on the 8th of April, which is the agreement between France and Britain as allies against the Germans, effectively. This is the beginning of this very long slide towards probably an avoidable war, which killed a generation of British people and French people and German people.
Russians
as well.
Yeah. So it's a grim thing on the horizon. As far as they're concerned, it's the Edwardian summer, though.
Right. I mean, if you think about that in terms of that's 10 years. 10 years before. What year are we talking?
1914. Yeah, it's 10 years away. So
10 years before.
Not long away.
Me and my pessimistic side, I start thinking about what things that are happening right now that in 10 years' time I will be going, how did I not realise?
Yeah. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of it around to see already. So yeah, quite.
Yes.
So yeah, it's what kind of a year was 1904? Let's talk about it in general. What kind of things happened? We've got fires. We've got a couple of cities burnt down, I believe.
Right. I mean, and we're still really talking about kind of like late British Empire as well. You know, middling to late, because it's still pre-First World War.
Yeah, me too.
And actually, when exactly was H.G. Wells writing?
A little. H.G. Wells is before this, really. His three classics are from the 1890s, I'd say.
Okay,
so four classics.
You went over those ones?
Yeah, that's a little bit in the past. He was still writing. I think he wrote. Was it called Kip? around this time. It's a bit of a later one.
We're looking at a picture right now of the Great Fire of Baltimore Fire in Baltimore, Maryland, on the 7th of February.
Yeah.
And to be honest, all it makes me think of is just like in 10 years' time, Europe's going to look like that.
There was the Olympics. Let's talk about the Olympics
Let's
a little
talk about
bit.
these. So, and this is not the first Olympics, is it? But it's one of the very early ones.
I think it's the third modern Olympiad.
The third one.
Third modern Olympiad. So let me tell you a bit about the third modern
Including
Olympiad.
kite flying, pigeon racing, cannon shooting, and firefighting.
Yeah.
They were obviously away when they should have been in Baltimore.
Yeah, they were supposed to be in Chicago, but they had the World's Fair in St. Louis, Missouri. And they thought, yeah, let's move the Olympics to St. Louis, Missouri.
Which is probably the only time it's going to be in St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, Missourians, but that's...
Well, you know...
Well, to be honest, you can have the boondoggle. It's rather expensive.
It is. I think it seems nobody wants it anymore. So it was a bad Olympics for many reasons. Moving it to St. Louis was... St. Louis, isn't it? Moving it to St. Louis meant that lots of countries didn't turn up. They thought it wasn't worth bothering with anymore. So they added some other things to make it more interesting. They had at the World's Fair nearby, they had a human zoo. And at their human zoo, some African exchange students dressed up in tribal costumes and acted out in imagining of tribal life of paying visitors.
So I want to imagine this as just a nice way of supporting African people in their quest for knowledge and just getting them through the summer so they've got a bit of spending money.
Yeah.
I do have a bad feeling about this.
Well, I mean... That's probably not acceptable these days already, but the organisers of the games decided that they would, in their own words, demonstrate that the savage has been a very much overrated man from an athletic point of view, and had these poor exchange students there competing in athletic sporting events against the best athletes in the world, and quite often losing because they weren't the best athletes in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really racist time, they weren't really clear about when the events should start or finish. So quite a lot of them continue for the next 6 months, and some of the competitors there they turned out to be 6 months
finish the Olympics.
Indeed.
I mean, that is an awfully good way to put off going back to work.
Just for some of them. That's all. Most of them have gone back. It's like that song.
What about
still driving.
Our poor African friends? Did they have to put off for a semester?
I think it was just a job for them, probably.
Right.
For that time, anyway.
Well, I mean, if it went on for 6 months, that would still be, better money.
We had quite a few competitors turned out to be imposters, including the boxing champion Carol Burton. Wasn't really him.
Right.
Somebody else.
But I mean, why wouldn't the boxing? Is it just because it was so not valued that he was like, I'm not going. Go in my stead.
Yeah, I guess so. And the standard of the athletes can be judged
That's
maybe
a
from
hard
this.
sell as well. Trying to get someone to stand in for you. By the way,
you're going to get hit.
Can you? Yeah. Do you mind going to the Olympics and getting beaten up instead of me? I know you don't have any skills.
Well, yeah. It's
like
probably didn't go well. I imagine it might have been another boxer.
It could be. That is logical.
And there's a guy called George Azer, and he got 3 gold medals in gymnastics, even though he had a wooden leg.
I'm surprised he wasn't called Smith.
Yeah. Indeed. But the best thing, let's have the best thing in the Olympics was the marathon, which is a legendary marathon in Olympic history. And I have to quote from from a website I found here called it's the Smithsonian magazine, so not obscure website.
Credible, yeah.
So here we go. William Garcia of California nearly became the first fatality of an Olympic marathon when he collapsed on the side of the road and was hospitalized with hemorrhaging. The dust had coated his esophagus and ripped his stomach lining. Oof. Had he gone unaided an hour longer, he might have bled to death. John London suffered a bout of vomiting and gave up. Len Tao, one of the South African participants, was chased a mile off course by wild dogs. At the 9-mile mark, cramps plagued Laws, who decided to hitch a ride in one of the accompanying cars.
Oh, I think I have heard of that one.
Waving at spectators and fellow runners as he passed. Hicks came under the care of a 2-man support crew at the 10-mile mark, and he begged them for a drink, but they refused. Instead, they had another idea. They sponged out his mouth with warm distilled water. Then 7 miles from the finish, his handlers decided to start feeding him a concoction of strychnine and egg whites.
What?
Yep. Meanwhile, Laws recovered from his cramps, emerged from his 11-mile ride in the automobile, and one of Hicks's handlers saw him and ordered them off the course. But Laws kept running and had finished with a time in just under 3 hours, and the crowd roared and began chanting, "An American won!" And Alice Roosevelt, the daughter of the president, placed a wreath on his head and was just about to put the gold medal on there when somebody called an indignant halt to the proceedings with the charge that Laws was an imposter, and then they stopped cheering and started booing him. And Laws smiled and claimed that he'd never intended to accept the honour. He finished just for the sake of a joke. Hicks's trainers gave him another dose of strychnine and egg whites, this time with some brandy to wash it down, and he began hallucinating, believing that the finish line was still 20 miles away. In the last mile, he begged for something to eat. Then he begged to lie down. He was given more brandy but refused tea. His trainers carried him over the line.
That is a responsible training crew. You're not allowed any tea, but you can have some brandy.
And strychnine.
What are the effects of strychnine? I've only really known of it as like a poison.
It's a poison, isn't it? Yeah. And they held him aloft while his feet moved back and forth on the ground, and they declared him the winner.
Right.
He was the winner. I think he deserved the medal.
If that's winning, I don't want to.
He got most of the way there, at least. Got into the arena, at least. Yeah, the poor man. That was a bad Olympics.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
other ones are better.
Sure. But that story of the guy in the car, that's very famous.
Oh, okay. The cheating.
The cheating one. That's one that's brought up. I feel like it's like a QI fodder kind of thing.
Yeah. Should be.
Yeah.
All right. So another thing of this era, when you kind of see recreations of this time, is airships, because we're just into the beginnings of planes, but they've had airships floating around, and that was the hot new technology at this time.
It was going
briefly
to be the future.
So here, obviously, I need to have something linking in with that, and it's a xylophone solo on the subject, a xylophone solo of a popular song called "Come Take a Trip in My Airship,"
which is definitely sexual.
No, the song isn't. It's just a romantic song about taking somebody up on a romantic trip in an airship. Anyway, here we go. Xylophone King Albert Bensler there with the "Come Take a Trip in My Airship" medley. Not going to spoonerise that one. What did you make of his xylophone stylings there?
You know, I actually quite liked it. It was quite calming, interesting, and I guess I probably would say this is the first xylophone track I have really listened to. So it was
Okay.
actually quite a change.
The xylophone solo market in the modern day has been severely diminished, so I can understand that.
People today, they just don't know what's important.
Yeah, they do not appreciate xylophones the way they used to. Yeah. That's true. We're going to listen. Let's just have a listen now to a guy called Alessandro Moreschi. Have you heard of Alessandro Moreschi before?
I have not. I'm going to chance my arm and say that he is Italian.
He is Italian.
American
yeah.
Italian?
No, Italian, proper
Italian.
And I want to tell you about him first, perhaps. He was a kind of singer that we don't have anymore. In fact, he is the only recorded example of this kind of opera singer.
Castrati.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
This is a castrati. This is the last castrati, he was
Thank
called.
goodness.
There was a film about his life called The Last Castrati.
Although I do like the conspiracy theory that that's what happened to Michael Jackson.
Yeah, the documentary I've seen recently doesn't agree with that, though. He was the last castrati. Well, there probably was one or two others. He was the last working one, and he recorded this in the Vatican. This is his version of Ave Maria, and people who listen to opera, which doesn't include me, when they listen to his voice, they don't like it. It's they say it's disappointing to hear it. But I think the problem is they're not listening to a lot of opera from this time. And believe you me, I've listened to a lot of opera from this time.
Expectations of what an art form is change.
I think the way the style of singing has changed. Basically, because of Caruso, people started imitating Caruso's style, and he's coming along at the same time. And then, people forgot that the style was different before.
Who is Caruso?
Enrico Caruso is the first megastar of recording, and he was an opera singer. We could listen to some Caruso now, but I don't have anything really good from this year.
Okay.
But yeah, people's expectations changed quite a lot. There's a kind of, I've heard it's called head singing. If you resonate the sound in your head rather than in your diaphragm, it sounds kind of strange and nasal and weird. But that was the expectation of the sound. That was the kind of sound they were supposed to produce in this time.
Doesn't sound nice when described. But
No.
I have to take your word for it if you think it was.
Well, you hear he sounds kind of slightly funny, I would say. It's a kind of slightly weirdly nasal way he sings, and at the same time he's a castrato as well. So it's a artificially.
But he was not recorded. Or is this the first guy to be recorded?
This is the only castrato that was ever recorded.
So, right, okay.
So we don't have an example. Some people say it's because he was too old. Might be the case as well. This is the last 10 years of his performing career, so could be the case as well. Okay, let's have a listen to.
If we only had like the recent Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
To judge on.
Exactly. Well, it's not as bad as that. I think it's okay, but it is weird. Let's have a listen to Alessandro Moreschi with Ave Maria. So that's Alessandro Moreschi, the last castrato, with recording at Ave Maria.
Okay, so how old are we talking about now? Like, how old is he?
50 or so.
This, right? Because that is for me the strangest thing is listening to what does definitely sound like a young boy, or maybe even like a woman, possibly. But knowing that this is a fully grown man who has been mutilated.
Well, yeah, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? I mean, I think it was one of those things. It had been illegal for a long time, and the parents would make up stories about accidents happening and things like that. But it was done, and it was bad, of course.
Yeah, no, I mean, the history of doing that to men is actually very long. It goes all the way back to, I think, Babylonian times, because it was something that you could do to bulls quite easily.
Okay.
As a way of making them more docile.
There's a lot in ancient China as well. It was for things like singing, but also eunuch soldiers, because that meant there was no possibility that they could father children upon your queen. You could be certain that they were your kids. Yeah. So what I like to think about in that situation is ancient Babylonian soldiers who also had great choral abilities. Well, maybe they did.
Maybe they did.
Yeah, maybe they did. Yeah, that's something, maybe an aspect that hasn't been considered that much.
Right.
We don't have any ancient Babylonian music to play.
There were a couple of moments in that where I felt, that is quite piercing. And other times where it was like, that's also enjoyable.
There's kind of a stage melodrama that was put into opera at this time as well, which is they kind of was stripped out by recordings being circulated. So there's that kind of element as well, perhaps. Okay, so let's have a listen to some more opera. Are you a fan of opera? Be honest here.
To be frank, I can't say I am. I would say I'm not basing that on a great deal of experience.
Yeah,
but
same
from
here.
what I have seen, it does not really attract me.
I've got nothing in theory against opera, but I've listened to a lot of not very good opera as part of this project. This Russian Records website has so many landfill opera cylinders that are difficult to get through. I don't want to judge it on that. They're very poor recordings as well.
Okay.
But I'm still not really an opera fan, even after hearing lots of quite good opera. Afraid not. All right, let's have a listen to another bit of opera anyway. This is a Isabel J, and it's an operetta technically.
It's not. Okay, it's
Jay.
Jay. I was thinking that's a very modern name.
Not Jessie J.
No, I mean it could be her.
So there's Isabel J with Poor Wandering One.
I quite like that.
Yeah,
that was had a bit more kind of energy, a little bit more of what I don't know, can get into. It's nice.
It's the usual kind of vocal acrobatics thing that I don't know the opera cylinders I pick out have. I'd say.
Right. I guess to me it just sounds pleasant in a way that I don't feel the kind of castrati guy did quite the same way.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say the castrati sounds pleasant exactly, but yeah, I think it's a different kind of thing you're going for there. I don't know. There's enough pleasant music out there. So Isabel J sounds quite a lot like another singer that we had previously called Michaela A. Mikalova, who does these high-pitched vocal acrobatic stuff. And that's a way of talking about Russian records. There's this website called Russian Records, which you should really check out. They have so many thousands of like pre-revolution recordings from Russia. Very hard to search. It's a Kafkaesque website, I'd say. But if you can get to grips on it, you can get some amazing stuff out of there. So these are cylinders that I believe one person in Russia has found and uploaded. And
again, we're talking metallic soap cylinders.
Yeah, or discs. There are plenty of discs around now.
I thought the earliest ones were done on things like wax, right?
We call them wax cylinders, but
they are not wax.
There wasn't that much
just
wax
imagined
used,
a piece
actually.
of beeswax.
Yeah, they weren't really wax at any point, really. There were a few made of wax originally, but not many. So yeah, here's another recording I found on this Russian Records website, and this is the Gypsy Choir of V.V. Panina.
Okay.
With Sasha Grisha.
So it does sound quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's good and interesting. It's one of the things I found there that I most appreciated from this year anyway. So here we go. So that was called Sasha Grisha, one of the Russian records that I've dug out for this radio show from the year 1904. What did you make of that?
I quite liked when it got faster, and then towards the end when it started to feel like they just looped it. I mean, I know they didn't have the recording technology, but
certainly not.
It certainly sounded a little bit like that. I got a little bit less interested.
Okay,
but that was quite cool.
It sounded like there were many, many people there, which is unusual for this kind of era.
Right, it did, didn't it? It did sound like a big group of people. Cool.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, Russia brings me on to kind of historical, really significant event. I would say one of the most significant events of this year, which is the fact that you have the Russo-Japanese War.
You do.
And really, kind of, this is the first beginnings of the idea that maybe Europeans are not some kind of dominant people. First started when the Japanese were forced by the Americans to open up to the world, and they reformed so much they started being able to beat people, and they beat the Russians.
They did indeed, and many different things came out of this. I suppose it's the Far East element of the Second World War. Something maybe people don't think about so much.
We're talking about Manchuria and places like this as well, right?
Yeah, indeed. The end of the First World War, which is quite a way away.
Yeah.
We have the concessions to the Japanese in China, which that really kicks off the Second World War as far as China's concerned. So many things leading through that, and of course there's the war between China and Japan just before that, in which China lost and had to concede quite a lot of things as well. And as far as Russia goes, of course, it's one of the defeats.
Well, it's just one of the many things that should have, that demonstrated that the Russian state was not capable of dealing with the modern world at this time.
And the peace treaty between Russia and Japan was brokered by Theodore Roosevelt, for which he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It's the other part of it, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of this long list of people with the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, completely.
Probably shouldn't have it.
No, for all his qualities.
It's nice to know we are maintaining traditions in the modern world as well.
He wasn't really a man of peace, was he? Particularly.
But, yes, although in our times he is a very interesting man when it comes to dealing with corporations.
Yeah, he had lots of interesting things to say, but he was a warmonger. We can't really deny that part of his character.
No.
All right, so let's move to the more Spanish parts of the world. I'm not sure which exactly of the Spanish parts of the world this is.
Okay.
But as you're a person who has experience of the Spanish world, maybe you can tell me a bit more about it after we listen.
All right.
It's a Mr. I wish I had more information about these cylinders and records. But this one, all I know is the title. It's R.H. Robinson. And how would you say the name of this?
Jarabe Tapio. Tapatio? Tapatio?
Does that mean anything to you?
I want to say jarabe is something that you chew.
Right.
Or like jarabe, I think I may have seen this on the backs of sweet packets, and they use it to like seal Skittles or something like that, or things like that.
Right. That's an interesting thing to have a song about.
I'm going to Google that.
Right, we can find out. So here we go. How do you say it? Jarabe
Tapatio? I really don't know this one. Main thing is
Jarabe Tapatío, por Rafael Herrera Robinson, fonograma Errington. Si usted me quiere de formalidad, primero me ha de enseñar el modo de enamorar, que cuando tenga dinero nos iremos a pasear. Adelante son las lástimas, como dicen los malditos, arrímate vida mía, pásate tus cariñitos. Invita, no me decías, en el alma me adorabas, que a todas horas del día, cuando no me veías llorabas. Indita del otro día, donde dormiste esta noche que traes la barriga fría. Y ahí va la bola y ruede la bola, me dijo una de Tepi. Ahí va la bola y ruede la bola, señores, no soy de aquí. Ahí va la bola y ruede la bola, me dijo una queretana. Ahí va la bola y ruede la bola, señores, hasta mañana. El pobre del zapatero, que los ojos se le van, porque no tiene dinero para sacarla a pasear. Mi buscavida está preso, el señor me lo quiere echar, y libre no me da nada, pues preso que me ha de dar. Es buscavida de mi corazón, hasta me puede verse en la prisión. Ojalá y se echen 10 años, que se te quiten los sinvergüenzos. Si te preguntan, diles la verdad, ¿dónde está tu amor? Aquí está, aquí está. Que tú la bola va pa' San Pedro rodeada de carmesí, carretas y coches, mujeres en burro, y no me llevan a mí, que soy tan mala tengo yo, herida de un rebocero, que no me saca a pasear porque no tiene dinero. Y cárgale al cariño, le dije a mi valedor, llore el tiempo vale, que la trate con rigor. Uy, 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 qué miedo les tengo, no me vayan a matar. Con su cuchillo de palo a mi lado y sin cortar, ya tengo los ojos verdes, me comienza a dar el mal. Soy del barrio del Santuario y pendo del Pilancón. Me dijo una del Guayabo de que se arruga el frijol. Todavía no lo echan a la olla ni a la.
So there we go. So we found out what that is while we've been listening to it. And what is it?
It is a herb mixture. And so I think it's something that you can, for example, wash your mouth out with and stuff.
Yeah. It's not.
No?
No, it's not that.
What?
Yeah. It's the Mexican hat dance.
No, but the jarabe, the thing
okay.
itself.
Okay.
Like...
Okay, well, we can have a look for that as well.
Yeah, the word jarabe, from Arabic charab, originally meaning herb mixture, denotes a combination of various Mexican musics. All right.
Wow. It literally means syrup, which
Right.
refers to the mixture of meters within one jarabe.
Okay.
Right, okay. All right.
Well, the phrases I picked up, I did not find it very easy to understand, the Spanish in that. But there were a couple of good phrases I got from that. There was something about the poor shoemaker.
Okay.
There was lots of singing about weddings, I think.
Of course, shoemakers are being priced out at this point by the industrialisation of the shoe manufacturing process.
I mean, wouldn't that have happened considerably before? I
Yeah,
mean, maybe
I'm
not in
guessing
Mexico, but...
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see the word jarabe originally meaning herb mixture.
Yeah.
There we go.
And there was other ones which is like, they're not going to kill me. He's not going to kill me with his knife.
Wow.
That was one of the last lines.
Oh, that's good to know.
I think it was the knife was in somehow funny.
Right.
I have no idea why.
Mexican humour. All right, at the beginning of this show, we were talking about men in straw boaters singing in close harmony. This is an example of that. And we would call that barbershop at this point.
Mm-hmm.
However, barbershop is an invention of the 50s.
Right.
Where they take old songs, old vocal harmony songs, and we perform them in a kind of sanitized way.
Right, so that is properly like white men music.
Yeah. What they're sanitizing, interestingly enough, it's two different things. They're sanitizing the black performers
Right.
on one hand, and on the other hand, they're sanitizing the racist white performers. They're taking all the songs.
That is somewhat better. I mean, I'll take the second part.
Well, it's a bit of one and a bit of the other.
Right.
What they're doing with the racist white songs is they're taking out the racist bits or the racist names and continuing to perform them. So it's kind of a censoring of history in that sense.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, you would call this barbershop now, but at the time they're just calling it a vocal group. Yeah, and it's the Edison Male Quartet. Anything with Edison in the title, it's the guys they had hanging around their recording studio in New York, and it's called Breeze of the Night.
Star is brightly gleaming, while my love is dreaming, and the moon is beaming, and the merry, merry carol of the happy sailor feels upon the air tonight. In my boat we will roll the sparkling wavelets, gently we roll up, walk upon the waves, on the ripple of the waters roll the storm. Come with me, oh my love, sweet the melody, swells on the breeze of the night. Come with me, my love, sunshine over the shining eye, I'm waiting, my love.
There is the Edison Male Quartet with Breeze of the Night. Just from listening to so many of these things, I recognise one of those voices as Arthur Collins, I think.
Okay.
Arthur Collins, I've played quite a lot on this show before. He was the Elvis of the Edwardian era. In many different ways. He was a white man appropriating kind of black culture to become the biggest singing star of the age.
Right.
So in the same way as Elvis. So yeah, I could hear his voice in there somewhere. So
I guess that to me was kind of exactly what I was thinking was going to come up.
Yeah. There's not that much of that stuff.
I enjoyed it much more than I expected to.
Okay.
It was
good.
like, actually, yes, I could quite happily just kind of listen to this whilst I drank quite a lot of gin and tonic next to a river. That'd be good. I mean, so yeah, and speaking of gin and tonics next to a river, like the Bloomsbury set, they moved to Bloomsbury in this year as well.
Okay.
Like obviously they famously spent a lot of time up in Grantchester.
Oh yeah.
People like Maynard Keynes and stuff.
It's the local connection with Cambridge.
Gin and tonics on the river, or probably lots of other stuff.
And as we're recording, it's a warm July evening, so might go off and do that right now anyway.
That does sound like an excellent idea.
Why not?
It's tradition, we have to.
Is it?
Obligatory.
Right, okay.
Right?
Well, if it's an obligation, it can't be avoided, so that's fair enough.
It's done.
Centuries of Sound on Cambridge 105 Radio.
You've been listening to Centuries of Sound on Cambridge 105 Radio. I've been James.
I've been Liam.
And that's all we have for you today on the year 1904. So what's your impression of the year 1904 been, would you say?
Surprisingly good, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it seems more relaxed.
I should say I've edited this down from over 1,000 recordings. So, just to give you an idea.
We're just narrowing down to what James finds as relaxed.
Not necessarily relaxed, interesting in some way.
Okay.
So a selection of those things. If you want to hear an hour-long mix from this year and of every year from the 1850s to 1915, you can come along to my main website, which is at centuriesofsound.com. You can email me at james@centuriesofsound.com, or you can go to my Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all of those things if you just search for Centuries of Sound, or on Apple Podcasts. I'm on there as well. Yeah, otherwise, thank you for listening tonight, and we're going to play out with the Albert Sandler Trio. It's not the Adam Sandler Trio. It's the Albert Sandler Trio.
That would not be a good ending.
And it's called the Kashmiri Song. It sounds like a bit of a classical music they've put together themselves rather than...
for Indian love lyrics. I mean,
Kashmiri Song for Indian love lyrics. That's the full title.
The thing you need to know about Kashmir is that it was this incredibly... Well, it still is a very incredibly beautiful place, and where people used to go on holiday. You know, all the wealthy... Bit like Shimla, I think. The Beatles went and had a boat up there.
Yeah. So it was not the same view we have of it now.
Right,
really.
no, I mean, because it just hadn't happened yet. It was this probably fairly idyllic place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's play it with that then. It's a nice bit of relaxing classical music to finish off with. Here we go.